Hello, this is Brian Foster on Kardec Radio, presenting the program Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us.
Hello, on April 18th, 2018. Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio on that Facebook page live streaming. We're live streaming actually with pictures, with video on the Facebook page, Kardec Radio, and also on Kardec Radio, the app that you can download on your iPhone or your Android phone. Just go to the App Store or the Play Store and look up Kardec Radio, Kardec. So this should be very good for you. I've seen more and more people use it all the time. It's the listenership, I should say, not readership, goes up pretty well every month. So I'm very happy that people are listening to that, as well as more people are liking Kardec Radio. So again, please like Kardec Radio. I have my own also blog where I post articles and other people post spiritist information. A lot of people use that, and it's called Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us. Please join that, especially if you have questions, either on Kardec Radio or my other blog on Facebook. Ask your questions. There's lots of spiritists on each of those Facebook sites. They will answer you. You'll get many answers. You'll get a lot of help. And again, also I have my own blog, nwspiritism.com. So tonight, we are talking about something very exciting. And that is what you have to look forward to as you go into heaven, into the higher realms of the spirit world. Higher for us. There's many higher than even the circles of levels around heaven within the earth. But for us, it's very high, right? So, and I talk about this. This is in my book, Spirits in the Spirit Universe, right here. So Spirits in the Spirit Universe. You can find links to that book on my site, nwspiritism.com. And I also have, when I post these live Facebook streamings, I post these to the YouTube channel. You can, again, go to nwspiritism.com, and you can look at any of the past live streaming Facebook sites I've had for quite a few months. So I've been posting those there, as well as I've been posting videos on, 4 or 5 minute, 10-minute videos on different questions of spiritism. I just posted one about high order spirits, the first level. Okay, let's talk about the exciting thing tonight. Spirits have capabilities and tools at their command, just like the rest of us. Except, of course, their capabilities and tools are more than we could ever dream of having in our physical universe. What are those extra capabilities, superpowers, and toolkits that any dreaming 14-year-old boy would die for? This is precisely what we begin to find out. Now, I'm sure what we are told by spirits communicating to the Reverend Vale Owen and other spiritist mediums is a fraction of their true extent. Much of what is revealed is done with commentary by spirits that describe the difficulty of explaining complex ideas and objects in the narrow confines of the limits of human society, technology, and mind. The difficulty of one society based upon different natural laws communicating to another society was first broached by Socrates in his allegory of the cave. In the cave, there were men chained to the wall with a fire behind them. They could only see the movement of shadows and flickering light. In essence, they lived in a two-dimensional world of movable objects, heights and widths, traveling on the surface of the wall, like watching a two-dimensional film in theaters today. One man escaped and exited the cave into the sunlight. For the first time, he was able to see the depth. He experienced a bright world bathed in sunlight with robust objects traveling to and fro. He was so excited he wanted to share his discovery with his fellow prisoners. He walked back to the cave, waited long enough for his eyes to readjust to the dim light, and journeyed on to where the others awaited. He told them about the bright light, the fact that objects didn't just have two dimensions, but three. He expounded on the wondrous new world he discovered. The others thought him mad and killed him before his insanity could spread. So many philosophers have interpreted Socrates' allegory, but all have missed the vital point. While the allegory could indeed have pertinence to how we perceive the world and limitation of our ability to absorb new knowledge, or the role of freedom, The fact is, Socrates was preparing us for something larger. Socrates was telling us about the difference between our world, the physical world, and the spirit world. We live in 3 dimensions with time moving forward. In the spirit realm, we shall live in 4 dimensions, with the added effect that as the spirit ascends, the spirit can see an object from beginning to end in a longer time frame. A higher spirit doesn't see only a table, but the trees that grew to make the table, the process of manufacturing the table, the use of the table, and the deterioration of the table. How does one explain that to us on Earth? In one of the communications to the Reverend Vale Owen, he asked for a more detailed description of a house in one of the higher levels of heaven. The Spirit told him it would be like trying to describe Westminster Abbey to a fish. So, let's talk about the Spirit attributes. Now, sight and touch as a spirit. How does a spirit see and touch? Vale Owen's mother tells us from the other side. In the Reverend Owen's book, which is a collection of 4 of his books, Life Beyond the Veil, in this first book, the Lowlands of Heaven section, where his mother tells him about her life and work in one of the first levels of heaven. There is a short paragraph where she describes how a spirit sees an incarnate. Vale Owen asks his mother, "Are you able to see me as I sit here writing?" And she responds, "We do see you, but with other eyes than yours. Our eyes are not accustomed to the effect of light as you have it on Earth. Our light is of a different kind, a different sort of interpenetrating element by which we are able to discern your inmost mind. And that is it to what we speak, to you yourself, and not, of course, to your outward ears. So it is you yourself we see, and not your material body, which is but an enveloping robe." So very interesting. So they see us differently. Spirits are creatures of an invisible world to us, but our world is not hidden from them. They can see right through our flesh and bones and determine the location of our spirits. Our thoughts are as open as a baby's feelings, and whether we know it or not, we receive communications from spirits. The transfers of messages is constant, for thoughts from humans and spirits are transmitted like radio waves. A small minority of us are able to discern a minuscule portion of the tidal wave of ideas and emotions which roll over us. I have no talent in that direction, but I do wonder if my good or bad ideas at any particular time are really my own, or am I subconsciously translating the ether of pure contemplations that I move about in like a fog. Now, our ability to filter the positive radiations from the negative is one of the reasons why we are sent here on Earth. We are directed to learn to use our conscience to correctly collate the worthwhile ideas while discarding any notion which may cause physical or emotional harm to ourselves or others. Sounds like the teenage years, right? Well, the analogy is valid, for we are on Earth to start to build our real character. And Vale Owen's mother also explains what it means when a spirit touches you. This is what she says. "When we touch you, therefore, you do not feel the touch physically, but spiritually. And if you wish to apprehend our touch, you'll have to keep this in mind and look deeper than the body and its mechanical brain." So we are being told that our brain has inherent limits. Our spirit is connected to our body and brain via the paraspirit. It is the paraspirit that transmits all data back and forth between our body and our true spirit. Now, we can become our true spirit when we sleep at night or when we leave our body after death, physical death. Our physical brain would not be too much and hinder our educational process while in our present state, but we can teach ourselves to inwardly peer into our spiritual side and begin to sense the warmth of our spiritual mentors. Oh, hello, Rosa. So, the other thing we want to make sure is that all spirits are a combination. This is on any levels. This is the levels from heaven, the lower levels, which is called umbral in Portuguese, or even the dark abyss, which is a type of purgatory, right? Because you are never anywhere in hell forever. You are only in those places until you change your attitude. So let's talk about the levels of goodness and ignorance within spirits. So in our culture, in our mythology, when one thinks of powerful lords of hell, right, a vision of twisted devil emerges who personifies evil and eternal evil. And according to Spiritism, No spirit ignores the light forever. It may just seem so. In Reverend Owen's book, he recounts a story about a woman in her level who experiences problems because she is not reunited with her husband. Now, this was told to him by his mother, Owen's mother. She was a part of a small group. When they meditated on how to assist the woman, they were given a vision of a smaller man bowing down to a larger man. So again, I'll tell you, Owen's mother was like on one of the first levels of heaven. She was just starting out on that. And then she was part of a group to start learning how to help other people. And then they were given this vision. And the group didn't know how to interpret this vision. So they enlisted the help of a higher spirit. She told them to let the woman know to proceed to the bridge where spirits were residing in the umbral or lower zone, as I said before, come to pass over to the first level of heaven. Now, the high spirit explained that the larger figure was an angel of darkness, a powerful lord in the underworld, who had allowed the woman's husband to leave and journey to heaven to meet his wife. The group was astounded. They asked, how could such an evil person be capable of good? Now, this is an important point. The high spirit answered them, my dear friends, the kingdom of God our Father is a very much more wonderful place than you seem to imagine. You have never yet met with a realm or sphere which was complete in itself and independent and separate from all other spheres. Nor are there any such. That dark angel blends within his nature many spheres of knowledge and goodness and badness. He remains where he is first because of the badness remaining in him, which unfits him for the regions of light. He remains also while he could progress if he would, yet he does not wish to do at the present, partly because of his obstinacy, and partly because he still hates the light and thinks that those who set out upon that awful uphill way, fools, because the pains and agonies are sharper then, by reason of the contrast which they see between the light and the darkness. So this is very revealing. We are told that everyone at all times can exercise their free will. No one is forced to ascend. Whatever notion a person holds, however delusional or self-destructive, is their own business. This is remarkable because higher spirits could, if they so choose, manipulate the mind of a lower spirit to any direction they wish, even though a new perspective would actually make life easier for the misguided spirit. This proves the spirit realm doesn't work to manufacture robots or even robots who do well. They wish all souls to retain their idiosyncrasies and to bring to the higher levels their particular strengths. And when the high spirit talked about the pains and agonies of those who strive to go uphill in the light, she was referring to the fact that as a spirit ascends, their mind becomes clear and more able to focus. This results in a more careful analysis of their past wrong deeds and a bitter feeling of the harm they had done to others. And we've all been through that. If we do something inadvertently or on purpose, then we agonize, like, why did we do that? And that's even more heightened when you're in the spirit world and you begin to actually go into the first levels of heaven. So that high spirit continues to explain what went on in the dark angel's mind. So remember, the angel's telling us there's not all good, not all bad. This is what she said was on his mind. He had tortured and ill-treated the same man whom you saw with him from time to time, and that with the cruelty of a cowardly bully. But as you saw, that wore itself out. And when the man pleaded this last time, some soft chord in the heart of the other vibrated just a little, and on the impulse, fearing a reversal of intention, he liberated the victim who was to make the journey and pointed out to him the way, no doubt thinking in his heart that he was a fool and yet perhaps a wiser fool than he after all. So what is she telling us? A small flame of kindness survives in the dark heart. No one is all bad. There is some good in everyone. There comes an enlightening statement about the potential of this malintended spirit in the land of darkness. This is what then she tells us next. There are, as we know, many angels of darkness who are in the darkness because of some twist in their nature, some obstinate trait which prevents the good in them having its effect. And these one day may pass us on the road of ages, who could become greater in the kingdom of the heavens than we who now are more blessed than they. So think about what she said. And I've heard this from more places than this, is that when they talk about seeing this person and it's like this really bad person, but that person has like a commanding personality and, is harmful to other spirits around him. But they say, well, if that person's going to make a high, a very high angel someday, because, they see in parts of that, the aggressiveness of getting the task done. They just know they just have to replace that evil with good. So it's very interesting. The very same characteristics that made the poor soul an effective lord of evil, when turned to the good, can conceivably make the same person an effective angel of mercy. For instead of focusing his or her energy and intellect on cruel machinations, that person could someday harness the considerable leadership qualities on benevolent acts. In short, there is never a dead end for any soul in the universe. The person you revile today has the capacity to generate goodness in the future. Understanding and caring and forgiveness is the message sent to us by Christ, and is part and parcel of the divine laws which guide us all. So, I hope that was interesting, because that shows that how there's always parts of everything into us, and that no one is beyond redemption. So now let's talk about more attributes of the Spirit. So we found out that, we're all still a combination of good and bad, just like we're on earth, right? Because as the Spiritism tells us, and of course, I'll let you know, you can go to my blog and read more about Spiritism on this site. There we go. And also, then I have also a picture of Allan Kardec on the site on the top right-hand corner. And you click on that picture, it will take you to the EDI CEI bookstore. And you can also find his books on PDF or on Amazon if you want to go that route. But they're very reasonably priced on the EDI CEI bookstore. I recommend you go there. It's a lot of books by Chico Xavier. You can find a lot of books in English. Okay. So now let's talk about another set of attributes. And this is all waiting for you. So this what I'm explaining to you is what is waiting for you when you get on the other side, and why the sacrifices, the trials, the tribulations, the good, the bad things that you go through on earth are worth the journey. It's as if you want to become an airline pilot, but you must go through time after time on simulators. You must go through horrible accidents, which are all simulators. And you must learn everything about that. You must learn to process information very quickly. That's why we're here on Earth. We're going through the simulator to mold our attitude and our character, our personality. Okay, so when you return to life as a spirit, you'll enter a realm in which thought is action. That's really the most important thing. When succeeding levels of heaven confer increasing capabilities. And in the Reverend Owen's book, his mother tells him what to expect on one of the first levels of heaven. So this is one of the first levels of heaven. She's explaining what she knows just about here. This is what she says. If a man could take his stand here on one of the high summits with which this landscape is crowned, he would hold some rather strange and unfamiliar sights. For instance, he would probably first observe that the air was clear and that distance had a different aspect from that it wears on Earth. It would not seem far away in the same sense, for if he wished to leave the summit on which he stood and go to some point near the horizon or even beyond, he would do so by means of his will, and it would depend on the quality of that will and his own nature, whether he went fast or slow, and also how far he could penetrate into the regions which lie beyond the various mountain ranges, and whose, I suppose we should have to use the word, atmosphere is a rarer quality than that in which his present loss is cast. So, Vale Owen's mother is telling us what the books by Francisco, his nickname Chico C. Xavier, has also revealed. Spirits move by thought, called volitation in the books by the spirit Andre Louise. And when a spirit first arrives, they're usually unable to command their movement by thought. But as they learn and acclimate themselves to their new surroundings, they are able to travel at the speed of thought. There is no upper limit of speed as the speed of light is in our universe. And when Vale Owen's mother talks about what regions a spirit is able to penetrate, she's exposing one of the primary tenets of life in the spirit plane. We incarnates on earth are made of dense matter. Spirits who live amongst and below us are slightly less dense. Hence, we can't see them. Spirits who dwell around us only have the power to move around the earth and below by thought. They are unable to rise above their level. This is the same is true in the levels of heaven. In the beginning level, where Jivao's mother lives, she and her friends are able to travel to the surface immediately. She is also able to travel around the first levels by means of her willpower alone. But she is not able to go to the higher levels of heaven. This is the rule for each successive stage. Spirits may travel downward at will, but they are not able to become less dense, meaning more and more pure energy, until they acquire the required qualifications to be allowed to live in the next level. So hence, as you rise, your freedom of movement expands until some future time you will be able to roam the universes at will. So then Vale Owen's mother explains the differences between the spirits on different levels. But before I go there, you also see this in the books by Chico Xavier, and especially the series by Andre Luis, is you will see is that they will, a spirit, when Andre Luis comes, many times the spirits, when they're, let's say, in the umbra or even lower, they can't see them, right? And then the group leader will tell Andre Luis, make yourself more dense, let people see you. And those spirits who are on that level, in the umbra or wherever, they cannot rise up, because if they tried to climb up, let's say they tried to climb up towards No Solar or beyond, the atmosphere would be so bright, it would just like blind them, and they could not, they just did not want to be there. They would not want to be in that area. It would be too painful. So it's a natural, it's the spirit world. And if you look at the law of affinity, it explains many things. So let me tell you what Vale Owen's mother said, the differences between spirits on different levels. It is on account of this that we do not always see those messengers who come to us from the higher spheres. So even people on the first level of heavens, they don't see people higher. They are seen by some better than by others, and are only truly and definitely visible when they so condition their bodies as to emerge into visibility. Now, if we go too far in their direction, that is, in the direction of their home, we feel an exhaustion which disables us to penetrate farther, and although some are able to go farther than others. So just like, a dog gets used to the parameters of the world when their owners have an invisible fence, we in our spirit form are limited in the same manner. In our most natural fashion, our boundaries are set. We are just physically unable to go to regions which are beyond our capabilities. We are not trapped forever in our cage. All we need to do is apply ourselves and learn the path to the light through love, charity, fraternity, and to intellectually apply ourselves to whatever task on hand that is assigned to us. So now, Vale Owen's mother next tells him on another attribute that is expanded as a spirit rises in hierarchy. This is what she says. Standing on that summit, the observer would notice that the firmament was not exactly opaque to the vision, but rather in the nature of the light, but light of a quality which intensifies as the distance from the surface of the landscape increases. And some are able to look farther into the light than others, and to see their beings and scenes enacting which others less developed are not able to see. So it's hard to fully comprehend, and I'm sure we're just be told, small little things, right? We're Allan Kardec has given us this information. He's the first one, the codifier of Spiritism, and then more Spiritist mediums are giving us more. But still, it's like looking through a keyhole and seeing what's going on. So we just have to, with each sentence, we have to take what we can and learn what we can from this. So it's hard to fully comprehend the immense power of a high spirit. The range of movement and the ability to see through mountains and dimensions is but one aspect. And of course, you can go fast in the speed of light, which is interesting in quantum physics, where one element interacts with another, where even though it could be great distances, they can't understand that because there's the rule that nothing can go fast in the speed of light. Well, even in our physical universe, they're finding exceptions to that. So in a land where thought is action, the most dedicated, the highest achievers, those who are adept in all aspects, are the leaders. And Vale Owen's mother explains the full breadth of what the power of thought signifies. This is what she told him. Also, he would see all around him dwellings and buildings of various kinds. some of which I have described, but those buildings would not be merely houses and workplaces and colleges to him. From each structure, he would read not its character so much as the characters of those who built it and those who inhabit it. Permanent they are, but not of the same dull permanency as those of earth. They can be developed and modified and adapted in color, shape, and material according as the need should require. They would not have to be pulled down and then the material used in rebuilding. The material would be dealt with as the building stood. Time has no effect on our buildings. They do not crumble or decay. Their durability depends simply on the wills of their masters. And so, as long as these will, the building stands and then is altered as they will. So, hello, Mara. Nice to hear someone from Brazil listening to our program on Kardec Radio Facebook page and also Kardec Radio. So, what did she just tell us? Time has no effect. They do not crumble or decay. This is why, we live on this planet, right? Time has effect. We crumble and decay. Buildings crumble and decay. Time moves forward. In the spirit world, it has no effect. There's no time. There's states. There's wills. Everything is built by the will of other spirits. Spirits live in the world of logical constructs. We read books about conjuring, bringing forth objects from our mind. It is a reality in the place you shall return to. A single or a group of spirits concentrate on what they want to construct and build it by their focus of mental energy. Doesn't this explain why we are being trained to become civilized beings on earth? Don't we have to remove any trace of malice, jealousy, envy, desire for revenge, selfishness from ourselves before we are ready for such power? Would you dare live on a planet where anyone could walk by, destroy your house, dematerialize whatever object they desired? Only in a world full of kind and loving souls could people live together amidst such ultimate force. It is as if you were walking in a city where each citizen was fully armed, but you felt perfectly safe because you knew that you were loved and cherished by all. The weapons on their sides only meant that you were safe, that no harm could ever come to you as long as you were protected by such benign spirits. This is why we must train on earth to live through chaos and suffering, to free ourselves of our baser inclinations before we can graduate to paradise. You have to earn utopia. They don't just let anyone in. And once you are there, you wouldn't want them to change the rules. So now, another aspect of attributes. And of course, again, I will just say this is all in this book, Spirits in the Spirit Universe, Book 2 of Spiritism, Spirit World Revealed to an Anglican Vicar. This is what I've done is I've taken the collective writings of Reverend G. Vale Owen, who I found by his name was mentioned in the book Volte. And he was, it opened a whole new world. He actually sent us his messages in the early 1900s, 1910, 1920, some in 1930, I believe. And they're just revelatory. And what's wonderful about them is, we have the first book, right? The Spirits book by Allan Kardec. But then we had many more books by Leon Denis, Yvonne Pierre, others. And then, of course, all the books by Chico Xavier, Divaldo Franco. But I found that the books by Reverend G. Vale Owen really opened up the processes and organizations of heaven that I had not seen in any of the other books. I think the only one that came kind of close to that into really delving into the organization, this was more of the lower heavens, was the most wonderful book, The Memoirs of a Suicide by Yvonne Pierre. I cannot stress that you should get that book enough. It's a wonderful book. And in fact, you can get that on the EDI-CEI bookstore. Okay, let's talk about how spirits communicate with each other. So, and now another spirit was talking to Reverend Yvonne called Arnell. And what he was saying is that spirits talk, they gesture, they write books, everything we do, but more. They can link mind to mind, not only when they are near, but from afar. And they have various methods to send messages. It all depends on their respective environment and spiritual level. And Arnell was recounting how new spirits of the fourth level were acclimatized to the condition of that sphere when he brought up the subject of teaching languages. And the Reverend G. Vale Owen's lack of adequate words to describe exactly how spirits speak to each other caused Arnell to supply needed detail into different processes of interaction. And this is what Arnell said. We speak to each other here in more ways than one. We speak by word of mouth in the lower spheres. That is how I tell you of it in its outward seeming. And anyways, these words or vibrations are yours, so the term will serve. Then we speak by picture flashes. A mental picture is flashed from one brain to another, near or distant. It may be seen at times as flashing, like a sword of light darting from the lips and eyes into the atmosphere around, where it loses visibility. When it reaches its destination, the picture is set up before the mind of the recipient, and according to the character of the message, it is invisible to a near companion, or he is sensible of its arrival by a luminescence ambient about the person of him to whom the message is sent. Then we speak also direct with the spirit, but this is used between the more developed and the seldom in the lower spheres. Here are three ways, each distinct in its own operative method. But there are also others, and there are ways by which these may be blended in composite. So let me tell you this. Hopti, which is a spirit he knew, he'd say he's in sphere 2, and I, meaning Arnell, is in sphere 7, and I wish to send him a message. Now he, being conditioned to that lower sphere at the time, his inner self would be latent. In order, therefore, that he should not mistake my exact meaning, I would project both the message itself to him and also flash it in pictorial form. And he would verify the one by the other, and no error would ensue. So everything is connected in the spirit realm, and there are multiple ways to achieve any connection so desired. Arnell himself illustrates a combination of nonverbal interfaces to achieve an error-free transmission. Our present technology has only within the last 40 years or so discovered methods to ensure 100% accurate delivery of information packets. Arnell's ability to utilize various communication procedures points to the attributes of a spirit. Arnell doesn't mention possessing a cell phone or a telephone or any other external apparatus. Therefore, within his personality, his spirit body, he contains considerable capability to initiate and send and receive conversation to any identifiable spirit across great distances, dimensions, and environments. Now, in the book No Solar by Chico Xavier, written in 1944, dictated to Chico by Andre Luis newly arrives in the spirit realm and was experiencing problems, tried to think of a way to contact help. And this is what he said in the book No Solar. He goes, during this emergency, I remembered one of Tobias's lessons when he had told me, here in No Solar, not all of us need an Airbus for transportation, because the more elevated inhabitants of the colony have the power of volitation at their disposal. Nor do all of us need communication equipment. And when he said communication equipment, that was like a cell phone. Even T. Valen's mother talked about communications. And even Chico's mother talked about communication equipment. So they had all these things. And as Chico said, the spirit realm on the lower levels of heavens is about 50 to 100 years ahead of us here on Earth. So let me carry on. So this is what Tobias is telling Andre Luis. Nor do all of us need communication equipment to converse over long distances, because we mutually maintain ourselves on a plane of perfect thought attunement. Those who are attuned in this way may use the process of mental conversation at will, regardless of the distance. So Andre Luis confirms what was told by Arnell to G. Vale Owen in 1920. Less mature spirits don't possess the capability to speak mind to mind. In addition, he tells us that this deficit is mitigated by giving a device for communication, which Francisco Xavier's mother told him a message from the spirit realm, which, again, as I said, were called personal communication devices, aka cell phones. This dispatch was received in the 1930s. Hence, there's nothing that we have invented here that wasn't in place in the spirit realm long before. Fast forward to 2010. The medium Divaldo Franco psychographed a book by the spirit Manuel Filomeno de Miranda. The book, Planetary Transition, which is a wonderful book, I recommend that to everybody, tells us of the help given to the tsunami survivors of that great underwater earthquake in the Indian Ocean in 2004. And during one episode, the recently dead are slowly awakening to the fact that physical life was a mere interlude in their immortal existence. And a group of ill-intentioned spirits were waiting to take advantage of these groggy souls. And a rescue team of advanced spirits were on hand and wished to proceed without interference from the gang of spirits, who by their nefarious deeds and ties to earth had not risen to the light. And one of the leaders of the rescue team stepped forward and talked to the gang. He convinced them to fall back and let the operation proceed without interference. Manuel asked the spirit who had last incarnated in the United States how he could communicate with his motley band, and this is what he was told. Now, quote, I utilize mental waves without verbalization in words. Under the circumstances and the thought that developed the waves, those afflicted brothers heard in their own language because we were vibrating on the same track of thought. On the other hand, the members of our group heard the dialogue in the language with which we communicated with one another. Since our group is composed of spirits from different countries, our communication is mental, without the need for oral expression formulated in the patterns of each language. The language of universal thought, which modulates expressions according to the reception of each listener. The task of interpreting languages belongs to the paraspirit, which has stored the idiomatic matrices of the countries we have lived in during our many corporeal lives. Even when we meet those from regions where we have never reincarnated, their mind captures and decodes the thought waves. Everything happens automatically and naturally without effort. Even so, when there is attunement of ideas, interests, or desires, the phenomenon becomes more efficient and quicker. During my discussion with the leader of the rebel flock, I used formulations of the English language, which were also heard in Indonesian, Portuguese, and Tagalog, and also by our collaborators, depending on their country of origin. So I had not heard this before, but our paraspirit is like the universal translator. Now, we don't need this as we rise higher and higher because things will just go mentally. But here on earth, whatever past lives we have been through, we will know that language, and that will stick with us in future lives. So we are told that our minds, our spirit brains, universally work along the same principles, so we may transmit information directly from one spirit to another. The prerequisite is that we attune ourselves to receive the thoughts radiating from the other spirit. And if we are on the similar level, then communication is rapid and efficient. So the new information I haven't read before is that in our paraspirit resides the universal translator, keeping every language that we have ever been exposed to. This is logical because the paraspirit is the connector between our spirit and our physical body. Everything that we do while incarnate is passed on to our spirit. Hence, upon return, we shall have a total recall of every moment we spend on earth. The spirit mind is full of automatic processes, just the same as our physical brain. Our bodies are kept running by our autonomic nervous system. All vital functions are controlled without any need for expressed thought. The same must occur while we are in spirit form. Communications arrive, are translated, and sent to the mind for deliberate thinking, all seemingly without overt action on our part. So now let's talk more about talking with other spirits that are not even part of Earth. Now, and Arnell references transmission of thought through images. So again in the book, Planetary Transition, the spirit Manuel speaks about a delegation of spirits from another planet who are on Earth to assist us achieving the next level of planet of regeneration. So currently, as I said before, the Earth is a planet of atonement, a place where we must travel through difficult times to fully form our character, to make ourselves ready for the complex tasks that await us. These visitors were from an advanced planet, a planet of regeneration, where they no longer live amongst immature spirits, where hate, envy, and war are things of the past. And the Spirit Manual conveys how he and others communicated with these souls from another heaven, which surrounds an advanced planet. This is what he said. The words in my vocabulary are insufficient for repeating the narrations transmitted through mental projection, giving us an imperfect idea of their kingdom that awaits all of us on the sublime march of evolution. So, lacking a common language, a shared set of concepts, and being from two different levels of planets made direct mind-to-mind communication difficult. Therefore, the thoughts of these spiritually advanced people were sent via pictures. Images would appear, series of pictures, possibly snippets of movies like we send to one another via smartphones. These would serve to adequately convey meaning from spirits so dissimilar. So Arnell told us about transmission via images in 1920, and in 2010, 90 years different, another spirit reinforces the concept presented to the Reverend Vale Owen. Now keep this in mind. This is where it gets even more interesting. So high spirits may also send images to our physical mind. This is why we sometimes get flashes of vital information or a picture of a loved one. And this power was used by a very high spirit who incarnated on earth, Jesus Christ. So in another book, as I talked about before, by the spiritual medium Yvonne Pierre, Memoirs of Suicide, he was introduced to a person who in one of their previous lives was one of the children welcomed by Jesus when he said, "Let the little children come to me because the kingdom of heaven is theirs." And this was the spirit Annabelle. Now, so in this book, it's all about Camilo Branco, and he's in this hospital organized by one of the organizations by Mary, the mother of Jesus. And he's trying to find out why did they commit suicide, why you shouldn't commit suicide, what to do next in the future. And in this book, there's many interesting things, but here's one about Jesus. And this is what Annabelle introduced himself when he talked to this group of people that Camilo Branco was part of. He says that when the Lord preached his gentle doctrine of love, marvelously precise, elucidating images appeared unexpectedly before the eyes of the listeners of goodwill, enlightening them in an unmistakable manner and imprinting never to be forgotten illustrations on the folds of their being. This is why the great envoy, preaching in an unshakable serenity, could hold the attentions of famished multitudes for hours on end, control turbulent multitudes, enrapt listeners, and convince hearts that would either prostrate themselves fearful in days when he passed by or adhere faithful and enchanted to his doctrine. The impious, however, those whose rebellious minds were in discord with the divine vibrations, perceived nothing. They were not attuned, right? This description gives added evidence of the capability of sending vivid scenes. Only those who were attuned to Jesus' sermon saw the image projected. Well, no wonder how Jesus came to earth and those talks, because if we think about Jesus with only within our own capabilities, and we think of the Sermon on the Mount and say, well, yeah, just like when we go to a speech by somebody, and that was kind of memorable, but you probably forget about it after doing something else a couple of days later. But why did all those people? Why did it hit them so hard? Why was it so important? How did Jesus talk and only, walk the earth for so few years and made such a mark upon us? And that's because of the power of him. The power is when he spoke, he put thoughts, pictures inside our head. And this is where reading about Spiritism explains so much about so many different things. Explains about the spirit world, explains about spirits, explains about why Christ was able to do what he did. So Spiritism, the third revelation codified by Allan Kardec in the 1850s. This whole doctrine, which is dedicated to bring us knowledge of the spirit world and our place within it, it presents us new information so we may begin to understand why we must strive through life, so we may toil to improve ourselves, to live life in the paradise that is heaven. And what has been told to us is just the beginning. And as we progress, our culture, our technology, our spirituality, more shall be revealed. Spiritism, this book, should not be considered like the end all and be all. This was just the first salvo. Everything we're told is going to be built upon more and more information. So as we improve, we shall be fed more to satisfy our hunger to learn about life after death. So let me finish now with one more attribute. And this is the spiritual degrees of brightness and the law of affinity. Now, we've gone through a lot in this talk. I think this is a very major presentation today, because it's really telling you everything that's awaiting you, and that this will be, I'm hoping this is revelatory to really go through and talk about what's going to happen to you when you pass on, and if you pass on into one of the regions of heaven. Now let's talk about brightness, right? When people talk about angels, they say, oh, this angel is so bright, I couldn't even make out their face. There's a reason for that. Spirits see each other in varying degrees of brightness, and the light a spirit detects is the reflection of spirituality and pureness, which exists in the heart and the body of the spirit. A spirit from the 10th level of heaven, Zabdiel, explains how the level of light within each spirit determines their place in the hierarchy of the spirit realm. This is what he says. As we stand on the earth plane, where I stand now, and look through the veil of difference of condition, which is between us and you in the earth life, we also see many people at one time, and sometimes but a few. These people differ in brightness according to the degree of holiness in each. That is, according to the degree in which each individual in himself is able to reflect the divine light of spirit, which streams past and through us to you. Some appear very dim, and these, when they come over here, will go to regions dim or less according to their own dimness. So what did he say? The process whereby souls are allocated to a certain region is called the law of affinity. The law of affinity is the great sifter. It is St. Peter at the gate, determining who goes where. There are no questions, no tests, no debate. You are placed amongst those who are like you. Allan Kardec, the codifier of Spiritism, publishes the answer from a collection of spirits about how spirits congregate. And he is told union exists between all spirits, but in different degrees, according to the rank they occupy. That is to say, according to the degree of perfection they have acquired, and the greater their perfection, the more united they are. So, this is showing you all the way from 1850s to the early 1900s. We're being told the same thing. We're being told more of something. Allan Kardec, on the direction of Spirits of Truth, right, brought the world Spiritism in the 1850s. More than 50 years later, the Reverend Vale Owen communicated with a group of spirits led by the spirit Zabdiel in the Highlands of Heaven sections, and told him almost the same thing. Next, Chico Xavier in the 1930s began psychographing messages and books from high spirits, all with the purpose of notifying the world about the doctrine of Spiritism. Consistently in literature published by Allan Kardec, Vale Owen, and Chico Xavier, the law of affinity is at the cornerstone of how spirits gather and are organized in the spirit realm. So what is law of affinity? So you make you think of it as like attracts like, right? Zabdiel tells us how the law of affinity filters spirits and locates them with their brethren. So, and this is what he says. So those whose radiance is great go into those spheres whose brightness agrees with their own, and every one into the sphere which agrees with his, be it less or more. But those whose bodies, spiritual bodies, are of grosser texture and do not radiate much light, but are dim, go into those dim spheres where only they may be so much at ease that they may work out their own salvation. They are not at ease indeed in any sense of the word, but only they would be less at ease in a brighter sphere than those in those dim regions until they have grown in brightness themselves. What are we being told then? After we separate from our physical bodies, we go to where we belong. The brighter travel to one of those levels of heavens, the dimmer into one of the levels of the lower zone, and the darkest into the abyss, our purgatory, where you can be known to others. The degree of brightness that we reflect is determined by our internalizing the love of God within us. The more knowledgeable we are about the need to care, be fraternal, and honest with all fellow beings, the greater our luminosity. And as we grow in allowing love to permeate our entirety, the blemishes that we carry within us, such as envy and selfishness, become less pronounced and solvable over time. While those who are tied to the material bonds to earth, who love possessions over people and see no wrong fulfilling all of their desires at the expense of others, are placed with their kin. They live in the world where others are similar to them, so they may see the two consequences of their selfish behavior. This is just it is a marvelous system to have people self-motivate themselves to get out of where they ended up, right? Because you go to where others are like you, and how do you like that? So this is why it's important to study to increase your spirituality, to understand that we are on earth to learn, to improve, to become better. And as you ascend, you will be granted the pleasure of being with others like you, with a group that cherishes and supports you. Allan Kardec explains how affiliated souls tend to stay with each other. This is what he says in the Spirits book. These spirits, happy at being together, seek out one another. Incarnation separates them only momentarily, because after their re-entry into the errant state, they meet again like friends who have returned from a journey. Frequently, they even follow one another into incarnation, where they are reunited in the same family or the same circle, working together for their mutual advancement. I remember reading about a near-death experience, and this person was taken way up so they could see the earth and kind of the surroundings. And they saw these two spirits together. And they look at them, he could kind of see them talking, hear them saying goodbye. Then one spirit went into earth, and he knew that spirit went to earth to be incarnated. And then it seemed just like a second later, the spirit came back and then told him about his experiences and how that person, what he went through, what he failed at, what he was victorious at. And so even this is from a near-death experience. Spiritism explains everything about near-death experiences. Spiritism explains why we're on earth. And really, when we look right now, when we're here in our physical bodies, time seems forever. But you measure our time on earth against immortality, against eternity. It's like minutes, it's seconds, less. It comes out to zero, right? So what we're saying from Allan Kardec to Reverend Vale Owen to, Chico Xavier, tight clusters of souls will watch out for each other. You read that all the time in the books by Andre Louise. And while some are incarnates on earth, others will look on from high and help guide the spirits going through their trials. Each helps everyone in their group to advance together. And as they become pure, their friendship becomes more concrete as their bodies divest themselves of matter. Petty jealousies and selfishness don't disrupt their relationships. So the more you open your heart and mind to the spirituality, to God, the supreme intelligence, the more you shall be helped in your quest for improvement. Whatever effort you expend in denying yourself pleasures in this life in order to help others and discipline yourself, grow yourself, as I've read it multiple times, you shall be repaid 100-fold when you return and re-enter the world from whence you came, the spirit realm. Oh, hello, Donna, and I also something from Vanessa. So this is, I don't want to go any further. We've covered a lot about spirit attributes, and there's more to come next Sunday. So please remember, every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, time zones in between all around the world, and we have people listening all around the world here. We will be on Kardec Radio, the app on the Apple or Android device, and also on Kardec Radio, the Facebook page, live streaming. I will also capture these live streamings. I will put them on my YouTube YouTube channel, I should say, NW Spiritism. And you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Go to my blog, nwspiritism.com. Click. It will say there'll be below the picture of Allan Kardec on the right. They'll say get to my YouTube channel, you can click on that. You can also click on the picture of, as I said before, Ellen Kardec. It'll take you to the EDICI bookstore. Oh, thank you, Donna. So there's wonderful things. There's just so much to learn, and I really enjoy having people get comments on these videos, on these live streaming. Ask me anything you want in the future. If it's not even part of what I'm talking about, we can go. I wander off subjects all the time. You too can wander off subjects. So I would love any questions. And again, I want to remind you, in the Facebook page, Kardec Radio, or Spiritism and the Spirit World Around You, if you have questions, just post that question. I've seen many people post a question on these pages, and then they're answered by many other people who really understand Spiritism much better than I do. And I think a lot of people have been helped by this. Anyway, I want to start our end messages now, and I just want to say, everyone, that thank you for listening to us. And then again, please subscribe, and please tell other ones. Please share the videos on Kardec Radio. Please share this video with others around you, and spread the word about Spiritism. Believe me, I have no doubt that you will be a happier and less stressed person when you understand why you're on Earth, when you understand why we go through the things we go through. And it's all good. I know it's hard. It's hard to adjust your attitude that when someone just gives you a horrible, feeling, or just does something bad to you, to think, well, that's a lesson I had to learn. And I tell you, but if you can get that attitude, you will be a much happier person. God bless you, everyone. And I want to hopefully come back next Sunday. I would like to thank everyone for listening to our program on Kardec Radio, and to point you in a direction to find more information about the spirit world around us. You can visit my blog at www.nwspiritism.com. Again, that is www.nw as in Northwest Spiritism.com. And if you are ever in the Northwest, I certainly would welcome to have you come to our meeting island near Seattle. And many blessings to all of you. And please continue to explore Spiritism and the spirit world around us.